You said you want to switch. You do?
You know, if you want to.
You can.
We're switching. That's just a little bit too close.
It's not as bad as Stephanie got it when her whole head was on.
Oh my gosh. Big time.
I said I took a picture and sent it to her.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good. I just got back from Kennedy Space Center, like
Isn't
minutes
it
ago.
deep?
It was amazing. I feel like a 13-year-old again in the simulator. I always wanted to go to space camp. I finally been vindicated.
Cool.
Stay away from your technology.
How do I change?
Salome, I think the speaker might have pulled out. I can't hear anything.
I can't either.
Nope.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Very, very faintly.
How about now?
Yes.
There you go. Just gotta talk loud.
Yeah, we need to speak up.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start the meeting. So we need to select a secretary for the meeting. So would anyone want to do that? Take notes and write up a report of each subcommittee meeting and then present it during our meetings on Thursday?
Marvin, you're going to have to come closer to the speaker. Sorry.
We have a secretary now, for those who missed it.
Thanks. That actually might work, David. You might just have to give us recaps.
Scoot it down closer that way, because you're gonna be able to hear me no matter where I am in the room.
You have a nice bass in this voice that I don't have.
And then I'm just loud.
I'm telling you, Marvin, just pretend you're yelling at them boys.
I know, just act like I'm coaching football.
Yeah.
That doesn't work in meetings. Did it turn off again? That's right.
Any plugs?
Pulled it from there.
Oh, there it goes. Still got a lot of slack.
Do you hear us now?
A little bit, yeah.
You got a soft voice
Can you
anyway.
turn her up?
No, this is on now. They should hear us.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Yes, stop yelling.
Yeah.
We can't hear her.
It is old.
I can hear Sonya, but not Stephanie.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us, girls.
It's okay. Hello.
Stephanie, I can't hear you at all. Is your audio on? Do you have a little X on your speaker in the corner?
That might be just her.
No, I'm turning mute off. I'm gonna leave and come back and see if they're.
Schools.
I don't know either because I can't.
I can't do it.
You see me at practice.
I think I'm just gonna catch the COVID.
Okay.
I'm just gonna catch it.
No, you don't want to do
I
that.
know. I'm too high risk factor.
I know.
Sonia, do you hear us or no?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
So
Yes.
I don't know.
We are go. Okay.
Let's go.
All right, so the next, so do we approve our new secretary? All in
Yay.
favor?
Yes.
Hi.
Is there anyone opposed? No one else? All right. Thank you very much for doing that. Okay, so next is probably the bulk of our meeting today. So let's go into the initiatives to start whiteboarding what we'd like to add as our initiatives for education.
All of them. Pretty much.
There was some information that Solomay added into our document. So if you would like to open that up, we can start there maybe and add whatever else we like to jot down. I think
She's in the
the,
bathroom.
I wonder if she knows that.
she's just.
Don't laugh at me in the bathroom. I'm trying to find the best acoustic
I
place.
am so laughing at you in the bathroom.
Well, I'm glad you knew it.
I just, again, I want to be able to hear. So I apologize, but I'm being appropriate. I'm not doing anything weird, okay?
You know it was the bathroom until we saw the top.
Paperwork on my bed. I had to run and grab it.
That's a nice white room. On the initiative submitted by HRC Commission, employee recruitment, hiring, and I don't think promotional procedures. That would be good to talk about, how we find teachers for Troy City Schools.
Yeah. Are we what?
Bullet point B on initiative submitted by HRC Commission. If we could add that to the discussion initiative.
Could we also add the ability of, I know we're looking at creating diversity within the school system, but could there be conversation of possibly perhaps instituting Black history back in the school or some type of diversity?
Oh, is it not there?
No.
No, it's not.
Really?
No.
And then correct Black history as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and maybe it's Black history and other history as well, as we have other diversity groups around the table as well.
But I think when that comes into play, we need people that know
We
Mhm.
real
have a
Black
discussion.
history.
That's when the schools.
Larry Hamilton comes to mind. He was our Piqua High School Black history teacher. I was blessed to have him as mine, so he would be a good reference point.
I'm sorry, what's that name again, please?
Larry
Larry
Hamilton.
Hamilton.
Larry Hamilton. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, and then also talking about, David, is it called the alternate school? What is the field house study called? Field study? When the kids go underneath the stadium?
Oh, the stuff on the stadium, I think it's called alternative pathways. It's largely for kids who are, from my understanding, struggling. They get more individual attention to make sure that they're able to graduate. It's kids who are at risk to graduate.
I'm interested in adding that. I'd like to look at the diversity in there. It seems when I look, it's a lot of Black and poor kids. So maybe we can be of some assistance with that as well.
Would they possibly be candidates for a vocational school
Yes, ma'am.
early on?
Yes, I agree. Or possibly Simmons program to be a firefighter. Maybe.
Yes, I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
And what was that called again?
What's it called?
I think
we call it the stadium program, but that's only because that's where it's located. There are a couple of different types of programs within that program. And a lot of the kids I do work with actually are, I don't know if a lot, but I know some of the kids I work with do go to the vocational school as well.
And is that something only for Troy High School students, or is that something for all of them? Okay.
That's just for Troy.
Yeah, and I think they're supposed to marry employment with that. I'm also interested how many are actually employed, because from my experience, they don't have jobs. It's almost just like we're trying to push them through to graduate, and then they become the rest of the agency's clients, in truth.
Mhm.
I'm interested in all the sports teams. I know for my own kids, I would have to advocate for films and for avocation of college.
That's right.
So unless you're like D1 ready, a lot of parents didn't understand that you had to be proactive, and I could not get film to save my life. I paid for AAU, which was a whole other
A lot of money.
But again, like, our kids give Troy such a great name, but what are we doing to make sure that they have
get
a
ahead.
solid future to come back to Troy?
Yep. That's true. And making sure that the people that they get to coach them have been around Black people,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. And
especially Black kids
yes, socioeconomic, language, yeah, all that.
or interracial kids.
Or Black
Yeah.
women,
Yes.
Guess we can add K as well, if everybody's okay with that.
So far we have B and K.
BK, I like to add L as well.
Could we put Q in regards to busing? We want to make sure that busing is fair as, you know, we kind of change. I had to advocate for busing for Cedar Street. I don't know if we want to add R because there's SROs within the school.
Yeah.
That brings-
Yes,
And what does that
definitely.
acronym stand for?
School resource officer.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, thank you.
On duty police.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is.
Maybe businesses, if we can get the kids that, you know, aren't, and not everybody's college bound, but if we could get some good intentional employment with the businesses. And then for T housing, Barb Holman holds some housing vouchers from, I believe, 18 to 24-year-olds. So if we have some kids that, you know, might need to get out sooner or whatnot, that might tie in as well.
We already say I.
No, ma'am, we
No.
have not.
We
That's
definitely
definitely
need
I,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I had that in there, but I thought maybe that would fall under the Relationship Advisory Committee.
Mm.
And I would say V is extremely important.
B, social media.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
Last night.
I knew there was gonna be some crossover. No, we didn't actually.
We did it.
Add on.
Did we do G?
That's what I was just.
Okay.
Yeah.
O might be interesting. I know the school is really big on, help me out, Kane. It's the young girl, the initiative, like, of not bullying. Is it
Rachel's
Rachel? But what if we had something more relevant that the HRC institutes about diversity, that we're challenging ourselves, as opposed to somebody, Rachel, that's not from our community, that's kind of removed?
This was years ago, but we had a program for girls,
Okay.
and it started out in the high school, and it was sponsored by, I want to say Sinclair, but they didn't like the name that the girls chose. So it ended up moving to Lincoln Center because they told us we had to change the name.
Oh,
So,
well, maybe we need to look at bringing that back.
Yeah,
Again, that kind of sends a message of we belong in a certain area.
exactly.
Doesn't
That's
belong in
exactly
the school.
how the girls felt about it. That's why they would not change the name.
Got you. Okay. If you guys are open, I think that's valid to have some kind of.
So what was the name of the group?
I was trying to remember. I'll have to ask my daughter.
And you said that would fall under community events?
I mean, I could be wrong. I was just thinking of like
Yeah.
community outreach, so to speak. I know Rachel's Challenge is all too popular within the school now, but a lot of kids are like, you know, we have this, and then 2 weeks later, somebody's doing somebody,
Yeah,
and it doesn't hold weight for them.
I don't think a lot of schools do Rachel's Challenge anymore either.
Do what? I'm sorry.
Rachel's Challenge.
I'm not familiar.
She was the one,
Let's take
first,
a-
young girl shot in the Columbine shooting.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was like a World Bank screener, and she stood up for kids who are bullying. She has like her hands on the back of her dresser that says that she's gonna change millions of lives and stuff. So
She was one of the first girls shot.
yeah. She
So was she targeted or was
Uh,
it just random?
It was just these two kids planned to shoot school shooting and killed a ton of kids.
Yeah.
She was, just happened to be the first one. She was outside eating lunch at the first door they came in. So.
Wow. I had a guy on my football team that went to that school,
oh my goodness.
and he kind of lived through all that. It's really interesting to talk to him about it. I think we should also add P, right? So we can try and tie in. I think as we discussed yesterday, though, it needs to be more. I think we should have a link on the Troy website, but maybe we need like Facebook and Instagram posts so that we can try and find people where they are, not having them come find us.
I will tell you, the city law director will probably steer us away from that. Because
Gotcha.
just because it is very, very difficult to manage.
Okay.
Unless as a whole, like for not just each subcommittee, but as the HRC, we designate one person, and then we decide maybe on a weekly basis, like what we're going to put out that week.
Okay.
That
Yeah, it should be
way,
decided as a group.
yeah,
What's
that way we
on there.
don't do anything that's going to jeopardize anything. I mean,
Yeah.
I know you can do it on Instagram. Like you can set out like certain schedules about everything that's going to post, so you don't have to keep up with it. You just do it and it posts automatically. So, I mean, that's something we can think about too.
That's good. So we need to
And
run that through.
a link through the city website is
Yeah.
probably, because these meetings are on the city calendar already,
Yes. Okay.
and the agendas are on there.
I know a lot of community members, they get confused in regards to the disciplinary actions in school, meaning what's racism and what's bullying and how that's addressed. And so I don't know if we want to put it on here or Marvin per the last
I mean, so, but it's on a deeper level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, like, for the last team, if we're gonna make, you know, racism a criminal thing or an ordinance, if that suffices or not. But I know a lot of people, you know, again, when they're called those names and it's just a warning or being talked to, they still feel like, you know, like it was a hate crime. And so maybe we need to educate ourselves about that and figure out how to approach the school to be more proactive.
And Sonia, what could happen is we have a state reporting, so that's where we get those codes from. And I mean, I've never dealt with a hate crime, but that may be on there. But like when you said like bullying, I will write specifically in what that bullying incident was, so we could. What I'm afraid of is I don't know that we're going to be able just to pull that. It's going to have to be various administrators telling us, you know, how many of those things were really charged situations. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Also,
We don't report that, not part of our reporting.
is there any way that we can get the percentage of students that are in each Pacific School, high school, junior high, elementary schools, the percentage of kids that are expelled from school are written up by teachers.
Yes.
And what is the other one? No, detention.
Or in a room without.
Isn't, and I would like that broke down into race.
Yeah, and then like
Yeah.
and out of school
And out of school,
suspensions. yeah.
right.
I like that. I'm
That's
interested,
another one I was
like,
thinking.
my
Yeah,
daughter often is the only minority in her classes.
In
So,
most of Troy schools, that's the way it is.
yeah,
Unless
so
it's
do
elementary.
people understand like CCP courses? And a lot of people in my neighborhood didn't know your kid could be in college in 7th grade,
Right.
Yes.
paid by the school. So again, are we providing that access and communication? My kid shouldn't be the only diverse kid in the CCP class.
Maybe it'd be interesting to know how many kids are, because I can remember this was in 2005, or no, but I graduated in 2005, so this has been in 2003 roughly, as I wanted to go to the JVS, and I was specifically told by my counselor that I'm not JVS material.
Yeah.
So you're going to college. Like, this is people that aren't going to college. Like, you're going to college.
Yeah.
So I would like to know the percentage of races of kids that are sent to the JVS as opposed to are told about this program. You can go to college for 2 years and get an associate's degree, basically, graduating from high school. Because I remember being at Edison and knowing this program is going on, and I see these kids, and not one black kid ever, all white kids that were in these programs. So, and I didn't know about these in high school either. I would have asked about that. I just knew about JVS or the Teacher Academy, which is what we could do back then. But that was the only thing we knew about.
And that has a lot to do with the counseling. Our black kids, I've talked to a lot of them, and they have said they have no one to go to.
Yeah.
They have no one to go to that looks like
Their
them.
counselor's their coach, right?
Or-
Like,
yes.
Exactly.
And that was
exactly.
that was my
counselor
counselor.
and a coach to coach.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So they have no one that they can really gut talk with
Mm-hmm.
or encourage them that, you know, you can go to college, and if you don't want college, we can get you in a vocational school. What do you like to do? The encouragement is not there.
Exactly. It's
minority
imposed
kid.
that you're
That's what
self-directed.
we hear. So like I said, I would like to get and I would like for the percentage of students that are in the particular school. Okay.
I love that.
I think it would be good to go off of that is when a student is being looked at to be a specialist, if they have a certain type of learning disability, they have a group of teachers put together to decide what that looks like. I want to kind of know like the details within the high school, what that looks like, deciding that, and also are they doing that for sending kids to vocational school?
Well,
You know?
we need it for before high school.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
needs to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it needs elementary,
Exactly.
you know, and these kids should be learning about college in elementary school.
Yeah.
How many of them? Yeah, so that they'll have the mindset, oh, I can do this.
Future Begins today is the only thing or entity that's doing that right now would be Future Begins.
Yeah.
I think we need to bring some IEP teacher in as well to talk about some of the barriers. I have 2 nephews, autism, Asperger's, apraxia. One is nonverbal, and he needs a very specific therapy that he's not getting. And a lot of people don't understand that you can advocate, and our school system does owe those kids services, whether we have them here or not. So I'm interested to learn about what services they have. If you're nonverbal, can you get speech? Can you have these things? Because there's a lot of people fighting IEPs.
Okay.
And also too, maybe something we can talk to the IEP teacher about is, are they trained and do they know the difference between someone who, I see a lot of kids, a lot of Black children labeled as ADHD, especially boys, but there's correlation between people who have ADHD and people who have traumatic backgrounds or trauma, PTSD. So they act out in the same way. So they're not necessarily ADHD, but I feel like once you're labeled that, you carry that with you through your whole school year. And I remember when I was in high school, there was the glass classroom at the end of the hallway where all of the slow kids were. And we knew they didn't get the same education as we got. They were kind of just pushed through the system because they were deemed slow. And some of them maybe were educationally behind, but a lot of them were just in there because that's just what was the easiest thing to do.
Also, speaking of, when we're talking about diversity, we also have to talk about the multicultural kids. So the kids that come from different countries.
Yes.
I can tell you for a fact that they're in a classroom with no windows, and of course the school has no air conditioning, and there's only one teacher specifically teaching for each and every language. So it's very difficult for one teacher to manage a classroom of, let's just say, 8 with 6 different languages going on. So that's something we should look into as well.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if they look at the adverse child effect scores, they call it ACE.
ACEs, yeah.
Yeah, but that's something that you can glean quickly that somebody might need some intervention or some extra support. Absolutely. And then to advocate outside. I mean, a lot of people are like, they don't take CareSource, but we got to be better than that and hook people up with doctors so they can continue the IEP process. A lot of times, if the parent's not self-directed, then the IEP just stops where it's at because the parent hasn't gotten like further psychological evals and whatnot. And it's the kid that suffers, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, if you guys go back to that document that I sent out, if you look at the section on education, if you go to the next page, there was a site there, sites.edu.gov, and there is a gentleman by the name of David Johns that works at the White House under the Obama administration, and he put together a document for disrupting implicit racial bias and other forms of discrimination to improve access, achievement, and wellness for students of color. So you can look at this. It's not only just for students of color. This can be applicable to students of all races. And I think that that's something that if you guys wouldn't mind, please go there. There's a PowerPoint. It is 23 slides. If you would please read through that, it'll give us a really good understanding from the White House down how they would like to help us with this. So there's tools there. There's like a kit that we could download that we can give to teachers, that we can present to teachers, that can really help them with their daily understanding of the differences of folks in America. So if you all would please do that, I think that would be a really good start to this group. I'm sorry. Yeah, that is. Sorry, it's.
No, that's good.
You know what I can do? I can send a link out to the group. Again, but it's there. It's kind of really light though. There's a lot of very good information in there, and it talks about a lot of issues that students of color are having when they're just in the classroom, and it talks about just the way that kids hold stress, and it talks about when these things happen in classrooms, how the white kids handle it and how the black kids handle it, and how that may affect test scores, how that may make kids take longer to take tests because they're not able to focus clearly on things. So there's a lot of information there that has been studied by lots of professionals. So I think if we all could read it, I think that would be wonderful. And then I think by the next meeting, it'll give us a lot more thought for how we would like to proceed.
I would add too, when we talk about like the speakers that we're bringing in, maybe we talk, I know I thought I heard a couple of you talk about like an IEP teacher. Like there's, I don't know how many there are in Troy, but we probably have 40, 40 teachers that work with students on IEPs. What I'm wondering,
who's in charge?
Yeah, I was going to say, I make them sense to me to like pull in Beth Marshall, who's in charge of all those folks, even maybe Megan Campbell, who, you know, at least has a county perspective, because we have a number of students who are also served with county services and county programming. I think that would give a comprehensive idea of, you know, how choices are made, what's the IEP process. I'll be honest, in my experience, I've had numerous, especially when I was at the junior high, and Carolyn, you were talking about like, you know, ADHD. And I'd have these doctors would have a script, literally on their script pad, would be telling us that we needed to put a kid on an IEP because they had ADHD.
Yeah.
I'm like, first of all, I don't know. I don't tell you what to do, so I don't need you telling me what to do.
Right.
It's true. But secondly, it was like they, you know, I'm sure that no one was trying to do anything wrong. They were trying to help.
Absolutely.
But the reality, like, sometimes it's not an IEP situation. It's a behavior, you know, modification. And it's a get this person a mentor. It's a lot of other things other than IEP, because IEP has its own set of things that need to happen.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you mentioned that, because
I'm sorry.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because there's the flip side to that too. We'll get people that are on IEPs that are being treated as behavioral issues. And I think that's why Riverside opened back up, because that's where my nephews went from the Opportunity School and those other kind of outsourced schools back into Riverside setting. So I agree, having somebody come from the county makes sense too.
I just say they cover things that the school doesn't cover, Troy City Schools doesn't cover, and I think we need to hear all of it.
And do you know how many, does anyone know how many Black teachers, interracial teachers that we actually have in Troy?
Loretta, I mean, remember, like somebody said it, I don't know if it was Christina on Saturday or not, but I think it's like 5, 6, maybe 7.
In all of Troy?
And
other than,
I don't want to say it because it sounds so unbelievably terrible, but I think that's correct.
It is. It is.
That sounds truthfully.
Well, and I may be exaggerating.
I've never
Bill,
seen
I mean,
it.
Billy Joe Emmerich and I were sitting here talking.
I've never
We
seen
came
any
up with, I think, 6.
person of color.
We had the lady that lives behind Richard's Chapel. She used to be our track teacher. Beautiful African American lady.
My daughter.
Oh. She's like, yep.
My daughter.
A great example, though, right? Like
Exactly
hearing what she went through.
Oh yeah, she went through a lot in Troy.
We want her back. She's a good teacher. Like,
yes, she is. She's a good teacher and she's a good counselor.
She's a good role
no
model.
longer here.
Yeah, she's exactly. So maybe picking her brain of her experience. That's so funny.
Yeah, that's my daughter.
Babe.
Yes.
So if we could also look through the educational items on this second page, so we can get through our agenda.
Okay. I'm writing notes down for everyone.
So I think a lot of what we're discussing is in there as well. So it would be good to go through a budget just to see how the dollars are.
Yeah.
So
Those are all on the school website.
It's all there. Okay.
So
And you said something in your speech on
I love going through budgets.
And as is all the school buildings and staff, that's all on there. David, you can,
Yeah, it's on the
Yeah.
school website.
How detailed is it?
It's literally everything.
It has to be very
everything they can
detailed.
legally do.
All right.
We're legally required to put everything out there.
Kane, you mentioned when you did your speech that schools should not get money because of test scores. It should be because of need. Is that something that we can mesh into? Because I think that's a really good point.
Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot of like state.
That's state and federal dollars.
State, federal. I mean, they really decide.
Okay,
State.
fair enough.
Yeah, that's. something that needs to be changed.
Yes.
Testing is not the answer. Early ways.
So the third point on there is about history books. So we're not teaching history. We're not teaching Black history.
No, we're not teaching the right history. We're teaching what they want us to know.
Yes.
They're not teaching truth history.
And I think it should be
Okay.
diverse too, not
Exactly.
just history, but all
Exactly.
around.
You know, the kids take a trip. I don't know if they still do that. Do they still do the Washington trip?
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Okay. I don't know if people from Troy, teachers and stuff, know this, but we have a lot of in Ohio itself. There is a Black History Museum in Cincinnati. There is the Randolph Slave House in Pickle, Ohio. There's Underground Railroad, which is right here in Troy at the church over here. They do tours. Well, I don't know if they still do them because they were going through some.
I believe it was
renovations.
sold, so I'm not sure what's happening right now.
Okay. And then, let's see, where's the other one? And we have all these Black history teachers and nobody's teaching it. The last organization that I belonged to, way before this, was when they had the riots in Troy, which nobody seems to want to remember. Anyway,
I'm sorry, but when were
that was 69, 70.
69, 70?
Yeah. They got a group together, which my father was a part of. And we had asked for, we wanted a Black history class, which we got. I don't know if any of you had Mr. Dorsey. I think you guys are too young.
He was a counselor when I was in Troy.
Okay, not that Dorsey.
Oh,
There are two Dorsey,
Okay.
not Clinton.
Okay. Then I don't know.
Okay, and then there, we asked that there be a representative on the home court, which we got that too. And we asked for, I can't remember what the other thing we asked for. But anyway, there were three things that the churches, the Black churches had gotten together, and a couple of the white churches too. And they got together, and those are things that we asked for so that we would feel more comfortable. But they happened like the year after I graduated, which is
Which year?
Anyway, it was a long time ago. We would have had our 50th class reunion this year, except for the COVID. So,
Black History Museum in Washington.
oh,
Stuff, too.
been there, done that. Been there, done that. There's just, we have history. Oh, Paul Laurence Dunbar House in Dayton, Ohio. Instead of paying all that money, let's do some local things, or it doesn't even have to be take away a trip, but it could be to do a trip.
Wow.
In February, they have the Martin Luther King March. There's hardly anybody there.
Yep.
Ever.
You mean here?
Why
downtown
in Troy? Yeah.
Yes.
Why don't some of the history teachers, since they want to do history, why don't they incorporate, give them extra credit? They give them extra credit if they go to the courthouse, right? Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
It used to be,
I'm not sure.
if you went for something at the courthouse, you got credit for that. Why not incorporate going to one of these places and getting real history?
We could march to the school and get educated. We don't always have to march to a church.
Right, well, that's true, but it's just, I just think as a community, the lack of support is there. The teachers, I don't think I've ever seen a teacher at one of the marches, not a one.
You know, it's very interesting that you bring that point up, because I looked at Germany and how they got over, the issue with Hitler and all that stuff there. And if you're in school in Germany today, they have buildings that had different things going on.
Mm-hmm.
They are historical buildings. They're taken care of by the government. No one can move in. They're forever going to be enshrined. And they talk about these things in class. It's part of their activities. So the kids there know that this is wrong, this is stuff that we can't ever do again. And it's because they're educated.
Mhm.
It's because it's
Exactly.
important to all the teachers that all the kids in Germany understand their history of wrong and how they can't ever do that again because of all these different reasons. And so I think lots of cities in America, we still have that opportunity to do the same thing here. And so if we have part of the Underground Railroad, what a wonderful way to show our kids what it was like for a group of our people, and how that was evil, was wrong. Here's what people had to go through. And I think that that's how you really come to educate kids and teachers on how we need to make changes.
And
here.
also,
So
there were a lot
it's a
of
great
rights that helped with the Underground Railroad.
there's
If it
tons.
wasn't for a lot of them,
it wouldn't have happened.
it wouldn't have happened.
Right.
Exactly. So they could go to the underground and then go straight to Piqua to the first lodgers that actually lodged. The house is still there. They've
So-
redone it. And your teacher, your history teacher you were just talking about,
Yeah, he
he
has
is the
a
curator to that.
museum.
Yeah.
Right,
That's a
so maybe
curator for
they
that.
could do the field trip
So
and he
you,
could.
you got
facilitate-
double trips going on right there.
Yeah, it's ironic. If you look up the names that unfortunately sometimes get in trouble and that I deal with at Partners in Hope, and I go to Mr. Hamilton, their ancestors are the Randolph slaves and they don't have a
Mhm.
clue. They have
Right.
background and they don't even know. What they know is the one bad guy in their family that changed the last name into something that it's not. And so again, I think part of the healing is for them to take back that rich, beautiful culture that they made here, that their ancestors made here.
Right. You know, I'm 70 years old. I still have flashbacks of things that happened to me when I was a little girl, sitting in class.
Right.
Okay, so it's, to me, it's gotten worse because it's underground. You know, it's underground. So I just think we need to educate everybody, not just, because there's some Black people that don't know their history either. So we need to educate everybody.
I
To
agree.
let them know, so that kids don't sit and being the only Black kid in the class. When they talk about slaves, what does everybody do?
Look
They
at
turn
you.
around and look at you.
Yes.
Okay, how do you think that makes kids feel?
That's the most awkward
That is
conversation.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
So we need to let our kids know that they came from kings and queens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also,
And
in the
maybe-
rest of the world,
Go ahead.
sorry, sweetie, I can't. My bad. We also possibly could look at a criminal justice class or something of sorts. You know, sometimes, unfortunately, we don't know our rights.
Right.
So we need to equip people to be safe and to be good community members. So that might be just as valid as diversity training as well.
Right. Right. Oh, another thing is
For students, right?
mhm.
Yes, correct, for
Well, it should be
students.
for everybody.
And
Yeah.
Yes.
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 Also, if you have, if you're in high school, if you're a high school student and they have no material on Black colleges, if you have one Black student in your school, you should have material on colleges. We
That's
did
true.
not find out anything about
And
colleges
Central
from
State is
Troy
right around the corner.
at all.
That's very
And
true.
my daughter went to South Carolina State, which was a Black college.
That would be times.
And on the whole Black history class, I do want to say that Black history is American history. It has to be
Exactly.
throughout, and it actually
Yeah.
needs to be included in the curriculum
Mhm.
throughout. It can't just be until we talk about slaves and then break, then civil rights movement.
Mhm.
And the other thing on that as well is it goes into our arts too. A lot of our arts and our extracurriculars don't start teaching about Black history until Black History Month.
Exactly.
And it can't be saved for Black History Month. This has to happen throughout.
Home on.
You're right.
But my only concern is I know that the curriculum director at Troy's talked about some kind of cut in the social studies department in history. So I don't know exactly what that is currently looking like. If that's still a plan, do you know?
Not to the best, no, I couldn't say.
I can answer that, or I can address it. They talked about that they were going to cut, and really that whole topic was based around the K-6 curriculum, and that we wouldn't teach social studies separately, that it would be integrated with language arts. which oftentimes at elementary it already is, but it was miscommunicated, misunderstood, a lot of miss
Okay.
issues.
Can we get some?
But I
Yeah.
add,
You know,
what I hold on. What I would like to add quick before I forget, because you know how my mind brain is, my biggest concern about having a Black History class, which don't be wrong, I think is a wonderful idea. But when you look at kids in graduation anymore, they can only fit so many classes in. There
yeah.
are so many requirements. So if that doesn't, kind of piggybacking on you, Kane, if it doesn't get integrated into American history, my concern is that there will not be hardly any kids who will be able to take it. And if they do take it, then they'll be losing out on something else. So it is American history. It ought to be incorporated.
Yeah,
You know.
it should be a separate class.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's.
But it's gotta get integrated.
And if it does do that, who is going to select what is put in there? Because for right now, everything makes you guys look really good.
Mhm.
Like you,
Right.
like white people have never done anything wrong.
You
So
Abraham
we,
Lincoln
hey,
Jr.,
enslaved them
yeah,
and saved them.
and so, yeah, 'cause that's right. Say that again.
Enslaved them and then saved them.
Thank you. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing.
That's exactly what I remember. I can still remember it in my 6th grade class. That is exactly how you learned about slavery, is that we brought them over here and enslaved them, yes, but they were sold by their own people, and we
Mhm.
saved them and we brought them here. And of course, now knowing that that's completely
They don't talk about
untrue,
how
you
we
know?
got here.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very short-lived, touched on, but it's
Mhm.
you know, yes, we did a bad thing, but now we're good. Right?
Yeah,
And we're
that's-
fine now. We
and that-
rectified it already.
Yeah, and if we really want to get back, we could go back to the Indians.
That's what I was gonna say.
We
do
can
the same
definitely
thing.
go back there too.
I think we should.
The trouble is, every time you start talking about doing Black history, white people think that we're trying to steal history. We're just trying to tell the truth about it, the whole truth.
Exactly.
Okay,
It's-
it's not
yeah.
that we're trying to steal it.
Exactly.
It's not the truth. It might be you guys' truth, but it's not our truth.
It's not.
Well, the other thing is we have to talk about, I mean, Abraham Lincoln, yes, was a great president.
But he
that-
wasn't.
But he was against.
He did not want to
and
do
he
that.
He wasn't what we think he was.
Exactly.
He believed in segregation.
Absolutely.
He was segregation.
Absolutely.
He believed in Jim Crow laws.
Yes.
And we don't talk about that.
No.
And then so everyone has this false
Yes.
image of these people. It's okay to say these people did good things to set us up where we are, but they
Absolutely.
also did these things.
Things before
So you
that.
can't
Mhm.
repeat that history, and that's why we do it. But
Mhm.
but people get so mad because we feel like we're taking
Taking away from
something,
them.
but we're not.
No.
We just want the full truth, the
Yeah.
full story.
I
I think we need to take a page out of the correctional book from
Yeah.
Germany. I think that they went through the same thing that America is trying to go through right now. And they basically came to terms with it and said, here's exactly what happened. And then they teach it differently in their schools than how we teach. We
Mhm.
whitewash everything.
Mhm.
And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that
Yeah.
it's just
We do.
whitewash.
Western history.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
I think that if we could have, even for Black History Month, it would be nice if we as a group could come up with a tour for our students to go through. And there's all these cultural places that we can put on a list and say, all right, if you attend school in Troy, your 9th grade year, or we can even go earlier, right? So you can go
Mhm.
6th grade or 7th grade.
Mhm.
And you can take these kids on tours and let them understand different things that we have here about Black history, about any other race that's here, you know. And I think that would be a good way to start. I don't know how we could change the history, but we can at least start with our community and our city and get them on a right path, at least understanding the plight of people in their school that sit next to them.
Mhm.
And I think if we can change the life of one person, we could.
That
start
they
there.
did something other than pick cotton.
Yeah.
Can we also look at our community health assessment that we did, I believe it was a year, maybe 2 ago. 50% of our kids are ready for kindergarten, 50%. with that new levy, they had every intention to bring a percentage of the at-risk kids into all-day kindergarten, but the levy didn't pass, and our kids need all-day kindergarten.
They all have,
They all have all day, every school has all day kindergarten.
everybody's all day.
Oh, they do?
There's no
Oh.
half days.
You
But I
could
think that goes out to like the where we talk about social services programming and outreach. A lot of people don't know that certain people under a certain income qualify for Head Start, or they qualify for they could go to Job and Family Services and get, help with daycare and go to daycare that offers, structured learning for them, not just a place to drop off and watch your kids. So I feel like a lot of that is just knowing that that's out there, and you don't just have to drop your kids off at a daycare. You can go to Head Start and they can be learning stuff before they get into kindergarten.
So kindergarten is all day, every school now? Every kid has access to that?
Yeah, that's 3 years worth.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, there's some reason then that there's still only 50% are ready for kindergarten. So I don't know what is going on. Maybe
Well, that could be because they keep probably changing. Like, I remember, when on my son, he's 12 now. So when he went to kindergarten, I had no clue that he should know how to read already.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? Like, this is insane. Like, I thought you guys taught him this. Like, he needed to know all of these things. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I didn't know that I was his preschool teacher. Like, I thought, he went to school, but that's not what they teach them in preschool, So, I mean, it was a eye-opener for me on everything. And then they tried to label him ADHD and all of that. So there's a whole thing I could go into with that. But, it's just, I just think that people don't understand. They just don't know that, that everything changes. I had no clue that my kid had to know all this stuff to enter kindergarten.
And Caroline, I would add to that when they don't get to preschool, I mean, when you're talking about kids who were coming from, parents who maybe didn't, have some kind of adverse reaction to school or don't have time or whatever all the, bazillion reasons are that your kid isn't ready. I mean, there's a bazillion of them. But anyhow, when like you said, when they miss preschool, Help Me Grow, when they miss all those different programming, then yes, they do come. I mean, I'm at Cookson, so whatever you want to call that, but we take this thing called the KRA, which is the Kindergarten Readiness Assessment that's done by the state. It's the stupidest test ever. Any educator would tell you that. However, like most of my kids are nowhere near reading. I mean, like they don't know all their letters. They certainly don't know all their numbers. They don't know letter sounds. So we teach kids how to read for sure. And a very small percentage of them come to me with like, I can read. I'm talking like I can count on one hand out of the 50 kids that we enroll every year in kindergarten.
So we need more preventative then.
Yes, we need earlier. And you're right, kindergarten certainly isn't the same as it was, 50 years ago when I went to kindergarten, but.
And the early age are the most important for learning. I had a licensed preschool in my home for 13 years. I worked with Haywood and Kyle to find out what they should know by the time they go to kindergarten. My kids were always ready. We did field trips, and it's important. Plus that getting used to playing with other kids, the sharing, that's important too. And most of those kids don't get that.
No,
they don't get that.
Yeah,
exactly.
Maybe we could talk to the Reading for Change lady to see what she's seeing.
Yes, that's an
That's
excellent
her
program.
mission.
Or get a reading buddy.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Some
Reading
of
for
the
Change
older
program,
kids.
yeah,
Get
it's
some
an
of the like the
excellent,
5th and
excellent
6th
program.
graders or to work along with, maybe that program and get the kids reading and stuff or helping them.
Yeah, that's the number one way to have a successful education is through
Reading.
Yes. Reading is
That's right.
such an important thing. You see a lot of kids struggle when they get to junior high, get to high school, they get to college.
Yeah.
They didn't read enough. And reading is, that is foundational. Yeah, like one of the most
Agree.
kids need every year.
Yeah.
I know a lady who runs that
Do you?
program, so I could invite her in if you all would like.
Cool. She at Troy Christian?
Well, her.
Well, no, my grandkids go there, so.
She's my neighbor.
Okay.
So she lives like 2 homes down. But her kids did go to, they did go to TC.
Okay. Yes. Good school.
We don't have anything in regards to ESL students, so I don't know if we want to maybe ask Ruby, or if you have a reference, Stephanie. I did see some crazy comment when they were doing the schools of Concord, and a parent like requested, could we send the ESL kids to another school? It's crowded. So again, I don't know
But
if
that's
there are
Concord
issues
anyway.
with
They're
ESL
all-
kids, or yeah, it kind of blew my mind. But yeah, so we probably should, kind of figure out what's going on with that as well. I don't have any reference points to
Well,
what they
and
need.
like I said, it's out of, when I was at the junior high, obviously I had a teacher there because it served all the junior high. I don't have, in order to coordinate resources, et cetera, they put everybody, any ESL kid, and like I have ESL kids at Cookson whose parents have denied services. They're like, we don't want our kids going to Concord. I know you'll take care of them at Cookson. What's that?
That's a real thing. Like, I think the first assumption was Concord didn't want them, but it's mutual. Your party wants to hang out. So what's the best for the kids at this point? Like,
right. Well, and it's like, I don't know who it was that said it before, because I was having technical difficulty, but it's like one teacher or two. I think they actually have two teachers. They have a Japanese teacher and a Hispanic teacher, and they're taking care of everything. So, in the last couple of years, we have Somalian kids move in, and guess what? Nobody speaks Somalian. And I mean, I don't even, they handle it somehow, but it's not like they're overly well equipped. And it's difficult. I mean, from, however you want to say it, from the business standpoint, if you've got two Somali kids, it's difficult to go find somebody, first of all, who even has that background. And then secondly, how do you pay them to take care of two kids? So it's a business issue.
Maybe
I can't imagine that we couldn't do something like that, for sure.
There's got to be access to some sort of technology, like an earpiece that translates everything.
Some kind of technology.
So that these kids are integrated in our classes, because that's an essential part of education, and that's what happens with the football stadium thing. Is kids are not being taken away from the integration portion of the education part. So
Yeah, and I think that was also my point with the glass classroom at the end of the hallway. Like, they are just outcasted from the rest of the kids, and so exactly, they're labeled, and they're just never going to have the opportunities that the other kids have.
And that's just something
they can't even go have breakfast. They're told, why are you in the building?
Absolutely.
Tell the parents that they're free to participate and they're still a Troy student. They very much aren't treated as if they're a Troy student once they're in that field house.
Yeah, and individualized teaching is something a teacher should be able to do, is to write a lesson plan out and be able to have individualized teaching that doesn't make someone feel individualized. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It needs equal opportunity so that everyone feels like they're equal in the class and also receiving the same education. It's a journey, point A to point B. Some of us might have more trips in between, but we all have to get to point B. So that's something we need to talk about.
Hey, Kane.
She raised her hand.
Yeah.
We can't hear you. You're off.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, you're good.
Repeat.
That's why you're major, because a lot of people don't think like that. What you just said, beautiful. I'm not trying to, blow smoke up your pants.
Watch your mouth.
Real. Even within our field, a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah. So Marvin, looking at the rest of these notes under education, they all seem like we've kind of reiterated them, perhaps in our own words, or kind of touched base on all of them, even down to the perceived discrimination, I think, through our education and community events that you talked about, and the stereotype of threats. I think, Ms. Phillips, you hit it. We need statistics. We need to know who's in the classroom, so we can try to help kids not feel like they're the only one.
Also, too, I'm not sure, maybe you guys would know, like, how would you go about, like, having, I don't know, do they still have assemblies, like, speakers that come and speak to the kids about, we could find a good speaker that's willing to come and talk to them about this kind of stuff, because a lot of it, like we said, it starts at home, and they don't know any different. So they come to school just knowing what they know from home, and they just don't know any different. So if we can catch them when they're young and put a different idea in their mind, you know, I mean, because even as a kid, like, I was raised to be racist, but and I never had anybody tell me otherwise. Well, I did have my grandmother, but other than that, like, everybody else in my family was like, this is how, you know, you heard things, you saw things, but even as a child, like, you have that thing that tells you what's right and wrong. So I always had that, like, I knew it was wrong, but not every kid is going to have someone in their life that tells you, like, yes, this is what your other family members say, but it's BS. Like, this is the real. And I feel like if we can bring somebody in to kind of, that knows how to talk to kids, obviously, and have, you know, an honest conversation, have, you know, them all sitting together and hearing this, I think that would be something that would be helpful.
We have a University of Dayton teacher that would be willing. My daughter said would be willing to come and speak.
We also
or if we had a group.
stats.
She would like to talk to the kids too.
Yes.
If she did something, I could get her name to you.
Can we include
to decide.
F, voting?
Oh, yes.
Not for sure. But
definitely.
I'm pretty sure that the only kids that, you know, sit down and actually sign up to register to vote in high school is an AP Gov or any government class that they're taking. That should be like a graduation requirement.
Absolutely.
Kids are registered to vote and, you know, are educated.
That must have changed, because when I was, I don't know if that was with you, but I had Mr. Alexander when I was, is he still there?
Yeah.
So back then, I think he taught just American history. I don't know, maybe it was government, but it wasn't AP. I wasn't in no AP classes. So he taught us everything about how to vote. And you, if you were 18, you signed up to vote in his class. Like, he gave you that option. So I don't know if any other teachers do that, but I do remember Mr. Alexander did that.
Are there financial classes for our young people too? We used to have
Yes.
freshman business. And
Yes.
that's a big deal. I'm interested in, so what I'm hearing is access, right? If I went to school and I didn't have a chance to commune with someone from another ethnicity, then I'm only learning from home. So my access would be sports or clubs. So I know diversity
clubs.
within the sports.
Well, that's
but
another thing. There needs to be
orchestra, I don't see
diverse
much
clubs. Yeah, not
diversity.
diverse clubs.
There isn't.
Other clubs, I don't see some. So can we maybe try to provide access and see if kids want to partake? Do they need money for instruments? You know, what's the barrier of why kids aren't in orchestra or band or color guard or, you know, the government groups and things like that? I noticed my kids' journeys, they were very much the only ones doing what they were doing.
And I think also on the flip side of that, we get a lot of, because I can remember a couple of students when I was in high school that were terrible. They were not prepared for the real world. They were prepared for, you're a good basketball player, so we're going to get you through school because that's what you're going to do. So they gave them tutors, quote unquote, and they slid through high school without any other plans besides to do the sport they were good at. And I know that both of these students that I'm thinking of are not even in their sports that they were in, and they're clueless of real life. Like, they're not successful. And I know it's because they weren't able to think that that's their only option. Is that you're good at basketball, you're good at football, that's what you need to focus on. So we'll slide you through school, past you, but you're not ready for what's on the other side of graduation if you don't make it in sports.
It's true. Yeah. And also their outside activities should impact their ability to play sports.
Absolutely.
It's been pushed under the rug for far too long.
Yep.
See, I do agree with that, but I also think that that's somewhat has to come from at home too, though. Because I was an athlete, but my mom raised me to not think football was always going to be my way out. In life, you got to have a plan B. A lot of people were raised, this is your plan A. If you have a plan B, then it's going to take away from your plan A and your thought process. So I agree with all that, but I also think that's definitely, I will say I do feel with being in school, you're really not, to me, prepared for the real world, but I also think that it also comes from being at home, what you're taught at home
I
too,
agree.
because
I agree.
Definitely.
That plays a huge.
Yeah, I think
But
that's
if
what
you
she's
can't
saying.
get that at
She's
home-
just saying
Right.
that
If
these
you
athletes
can't
are
get that at
doing it
home,
Right.
Right.
There's a
And so
lot of
someone
them
needs to
don't
guide.
have that at
No,
home. They
and if
don't
you're not
have
getting
mom
it
or dad, or even mom. Some of them are raised
Yeah.
by grandparents, or
Right.
uncles and aunties.
So if you don't have that at home, then you go to school and they're enabling you to believe the same things that you've been
Right.
told. And that's just my whole issue with non-white children in general. Is they're not told that they can be other things besides a basketball player, a football player, or whatever. You know, you ask a child of color what they want to be when they grow up. They don't say they want to be a scientist. They don't say they want to be a doctor or anything like that. They say, I want to be a rapper. I want to be a basketball player. I want to, do all these things. And that's because that they're taught that that's all they're good enough for, that they're not
Right.
smart and they're not going to be able to do all these other things. And then when they get into school and they're good at basketball, just because you're good at a sport doesn't mean that you can't be smart as well. It doesn't mean you shouldn't
Exactly.
apply the same things you apply to sports that you should be applying to your schoolwork.
Mhm.
And what I'm saying is they enable that and they let that slide because you're good at sports. And if we take you off the team because your grades are bad, that's not going to look good. So we have to make sure that you pass regardless if you should be passing.
Yeah. So within our school, in high school specifically, there should never be, if I'm an athlete, I go to this principal because this principal is going to relate to me better.
Yep.
And if I'm a scholar, I go to this principal. They literally know which principal to go to get the appropriate treatment. If you're a sports kid, you go to a specific person. That's ridiculous. It should not be like that. Again, if you get in criminal trouble or if you break a school rule, you should not be starting. It's our culture.
Yeah.
So we just have to help them fix the culture. But I do agree that a lot of the 90% of it comes from home, but you have to maintain a culture in school that reflects society.
Yeah.
And not their home.
Mm.
You have to hold them to a specific level.
I disagree with that.
Well, see, and this is how I look at it, and I'll be the first to admit. Last year, my kids, our 7th grade class went undefeated. And to me, it was great my first year doing it. That was great. But my goal was, how are you at home? How are you? Like, yeah, I tell my son this. You can score 4 touchdowns in one game, and I'm gonna be like, good job. What's your report card look like? I care more about my players' grades than I do what they do in the football field. And I care a lot about what they do in the football field because I feel like my job is to develop them to be the best
Young man.
brother, big brother, nephew, whatever. Like, my biggest achievement from last year was our kids had the highest GPA for the fall sports last year. So I think that, like you said, to me, as a coach, but that's just my approach, but not every coach is
I
like
would say
that.
we need more coaches
Yeah.
to do that.
Be the
And,
model for the
but that's how our staff was. Like, we pushed like during conditioning stuff. School. Do your work.
And like I said,
Because
this is
of all this
from
COVID stuff.
20 years ago when I was in school. So I would hope that by now it has changed. But I do
but
feel like
but
that. I
see
feel
what
like
you're
that's
saying.
how it should be. Like but back then, like our coaches were our counselors, and they, you know what I mean. So it was,
That's how it
yeah. So it's just like they need to be on the same page. It's not like I'm going to protect you because you're my best athlete, so I'm going to use my connections with the school, or I am the connection because I'm also the counselor, and slide you through because it's just doing a great disservice to the kids.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to win these games, and yeah, you want to look good and do all this, but like I said, the kids that I remember that graduate with me, they're not playing sports right now. Like, they're in the system. I see them in court. Like, they're doing things. They could have been so much greater than what they are.
Carolyn, their kids are doing the same thing now, in truth. I mean, my kids were basketball. I'm talking about when people are on social media inappropriately, criminalistically, having sex, tearing up cars, drinking, and then they're out on the court. Like, we've been through, it's still there, it exists. We've worked really hard, the schools worked really hard, and we got great coaches. Yay, Stephanie's husband, who stepped up for the girls, and now we have a different coach, and we're getting better. But we want to make sure, like Carolyn's saying, 3rd generation, you're not going to take it from us, because the people she's talking about, their kids are doing the
Yes.
same thing now.
Exactly.
We
And
don't
that
want
scares
their
me.
kids doing the same. We all know who these people
Yes.
are, you know what I mean? So we just want to be better. We want to make sure their kids succeed.
And to kind of tie in with what everyone's saying is a lot of it being home is poverty.
Yes.
You know, I went
Yes.
through poverty.
Right there.
You know, I didn't have a structure. You know, I had to rely on myself. It wasn't because my mother was a bad mother. It was because my mother was a good mother who was working 3 jobs to put food on
Yes.
the table,
Trust
keep the lights on, and pay the water bill. And I was there. Lights shut off, water shut off. You know, I was there, and we didn't have that structure. And I can tell you, I struggled through school because I didn't have a structure, because my mom wasn't there, and I didn't have a father because he was in jail. And so a lot of that is poverty. But we're talking about what's going on within the school.
Yes.
And a lot of it is, are we setting up a proper schedule, a proper structure for kids to have time to do schoolwork and homework at school? And it's not just study hall. I can tell you a lot of kids
Play it.
I slept inside.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, you take a nap.
Exactly. And that's the problem is we don't have a proper structure for kids to have a place to do homework and schoolwork. And that also goes into the teachers. The teachers don't have proper planning periods to teach the kids proper education. And I can tell you, I've talked to so many teachers from across the state, down in Athens, some of the poorest schools you'll go to. And then over here in Troy, some schools, you know, get more money and their schools don't. And I can tell you teachers across the board will tell you they don't have enough time in their day to write out proper lesson plans. And that goes into even with kids with IEPs. Teachers that are in charge of that are the, what are they called? Specialist teachers. They don't have enough time because, I mean, IEPs for one kid, that takes 3 hours of their day just to write one IEP, and they might have 10 to 15 students. And they have to write these IEPs out. A lot of it is just an education structure thing. We are 37th out of the 37 countries, first world countries that we're compared to as a country. There is a problem with our education system.
I will say, can I just interject here? We need to try to wrap this up pretty soon, but our teachers don't have time to be parents.
No.
Exactly.
However, a lot of kids come to school and that's their escape from home. So school should be that structured place because as we all know, kids need structure. And they need to know, you know, and it needs to be the same across the board.
Well, it's starting to get popular within other structures that they're realizing that we need more social workers on the scene because the teacher doesn't have time to be the parent and to go buy the school supplies and whatnot, but we need an entity that can so the kids can teach. It's a barrier to learning, so it's relevant that the school needs to figure it out. So we might need to look out of the box like companies are now and going, we need social workers.
I was gonna say, so maybe instead of a school resource officer, we have a social worker.
Exactly.
There's no need for a police officer in the schools in such a small town. I can call the police and they can be at the school in 2 minutes. There's no need for a school resource officer to be in the school. We need to have a social worker instead.
Right, and a social worker can't be my teacher 1 minute and then my coach the next. They got to be designated safe people that can advocate for these kids while they're trying to learn. Because if I'm worried about who's hitting my mommy and if I'm going to eat when I get home or if the lights will be on, it doesn't matter what you're trying to teach me. I can't receive it.
Absolutely.
We need children's services. Social, they need to be better and we need to work together better for sure.
And on that parenting thing, I mean,
Well, and I'll tell you, like I used to work at West Milton, over in Milton Union. They wrote a grant, and I inquired about that because I wanted to do that in Troy, and that was a few years ago, and I was told not to, but that's a whole other story. Anyhow, at Milton Union, which of course is a district smaller than ours, but with the same issues and probably even more. But anywho, they wrote a grant, and they had somebody come from, I don't know, Miami Valley, I don't know where it was, but an actual social worker who was on site 2.5 days a week. So
Yeah.
granted, it wasn't a single day, but they had that person's number, but that person was on site in the building, getting to know kids, getting to understand families, working with parents to get, you know, their families and their kids hooked up with stuff. And I'm like, that is what I need, because quite honestly, I'm kind of the social worker at Cookson,
Yeah.
and Lord help us all, because I mean, I try really hard and I make all the phone calls, but you don't want me to be your social worker, because that's not my skill set.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true. That is such a gap. So especially since we took mental health away, like
Right.
parents can't connect. So we got to figure out how to get another leg on that tripod, because it's falling.
Well, and the reality is there are grants out there, and right, wrong, or indifferent, because right now, I mean, you know, we fly with the wind, but social emotional well-being is a buzzword, at least in the education world. So like there's money. And I'm not saying that, you know, it's easy money. I don't have any idea what the requirements are, but
Agencies that are willing to do it as well. I mean, we do case management at Partners in Hope. So there are entities within our community that want to step up and they want to do things. Again, it's just bringing everybody together to look at these gaps.
Yes.
Marvin, you want to steer us back?
We like drifted way.
I'm sorry.
I was just waiting.
I needed to vent.
Well, you know, I really was hoping that we could like come up with some ideas that we want to try and focus on, you know, for the next couple of months. But I think it's all in there. So we can all go back and then I think just revisit, you know, the thoughts when we write up everything, and then we can come back to the next meeting.
Are you part of, what is it? Kids First, or Children and Family First? Some kind of committee that's
CFC Council. Yeah, that's another good resource. That's Jordan Hodges' group. Yeah, if we ever need. But I think training people on what that is makes sense.
Do what?
It's
Can't hear you,
FCFC
Steph.
Council.
Can't hear you, Steph.
It's okay. I was just saying, I mean, I feel like that group, there's
Yeah.
always an educator schools that sits on that group, but they don't report out to us. You know, I mean, they don't report back to the rest of the people. It sounds like, from my understanding, that a lot of the entities that make up that group are entities that we're talking about get ourselves together and get coordinated and services and information, et cetera, so that we could coordinate and kind of wrap around services for these families.
What was the group name?
And I don't.
FCFC. Jordan Hodges spearheads it, and it's the heads of everything you can think of, schools, police, like everybody comes together in order to help a family in need. And it's referred by a case manager within our town. And that's another thing. People need to get access to case managers, but that's probably another group.
I didn't hear the last name.
Sonia, who runs that? Jordan
Hodges.
Hodges.
Yeah.
Family and Children First Council.
Oh.
I can send you the information, Marvin, if you need, to Jordan.
And so what I think I just heard you say was that is kind of a group that handles referrals that are made to it, but not preventative.
Did you hear that?
Is that right?
I'm sorry.
That particular group takes referrals, that doesn't do, isn't.
Make referrals to that particular group, and then that group wraps around that family to help.
Okay.
Something happened.
So
I
if we
know.
that was earlier.
We're laughing at you.
Where'd your raisin bran go?
What I do?
There were noodles.
Oh, there were noodles.
There were
Where'd your
noodles.
noodles go?
Oh, my spaghetti? I haven't ate all day, people. My daughter told me.
In the
Me
bathroom.
neither.
Yeah.
Getting
I probably heard my daughter open the door and said, "Mom, there's a gecko on the wall," and she's freaking out, but she has to be quiet because I didn't want you guys to hear her. Love Florida, it's on her wall. She won't sleep in this room now. Oh, she just got it out. The door now. Okay, I'm not done.
Help her.
She got
She is
it.
traumatized.
I have a question.
She got it. She is
If we have
traumatized. She won't sleep in here tonight.
Publishing videos in the city of Troy, is there like a local station or like a website where we have people come and talk about different things about the city and
Video.
publish, and then people can go watch it?
We have a city YouTube channel.
City YouTube channel, okay.
I have,
That's where we publish all of our public meetings, like this one.
Okay, that would be interesting to have people come talk, and then we can,
Well,
Send
for
those
for
things
every
out.
HRC meeting
Uh-huh.
where we have people, those will be on there.
okay, good,
I also have connections to the State Board of Education.
okay.
So if we want to, maybe look into bringing them in, discussing diversity and, we were talking about, because this is also, local and state.
Right. I think that would be a fantastic idea. What's up?
it.
Look.
Sonia, these
Shameful.
meetings are being recorded.
What does that mean? People aren't allowed to eat? At least they
Yeah. So polite.
I was about to type in here, don't be hating on my noodles. What's wrong with my noodles?
Oh, goodness. Okay, all right. Anything else anyone would like to add before we adjourn? No.
So we need to
That's
talk
funny,
about
you all
the
looked at me.
Marvin,
Yes.
the one thing I was thinking of was like left over from our previous meeting where we've upcoming, we have Mark Barhorst and Tom Thunderberg coming to our large meeting next week. And do we want to forward questions in regards to these topics to Salome so that she can get those to those guys so that they can be sure to address them and, maybe bring some statistics or whatever it is that we're looking for.
I think that would be a great idea.
As I said on a previous meeting, yes, you can forward the questions to me, any questions you have, and I'll make sure both of them get those.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you for being the secretary. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, well, meeting is adjourned.
See you next Thursday.
We didn't come up with another
We need to come up with
meeting
another
date, sorry.
meeting date, time, and location for this.
So we have another meeting for community relations, is the 26th of August, so that date is off.
So are you wanting to have another meeting? Not before that, right? This will be a
No.
meeting after the 26th. Okay.
Yes. Open the 27th, 28th, or
Let's
we
see,
can push
just
it
want to go
out.
the off Thursday?
Sorry?
Do we just want to go the off, like one of the off Thursdays? Since that seemed like we had a hard time trying to find a date.
That works for
Cool.
me.
Okay, what day
So
is
you want to do
that?
like the 27th?
7th.
Is that Thursday? Let me look.
Yeah, it
Yes,
is.
it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So Thursday, August 20th.
Yeah.
Same time.
Time.
Same time. Age,
Yes,
everything.
that would be good. That's 6 o'clock.
Are we gonna be here
Are we
or?
good to use here?
I'll have to check. Schedule.
So as of right now, City Hall until
It'll be tentatively here.
tentatively.
Or the
So-
state fine.
I'm sorry?
Didn't you talk about some other place that we could use
Partners in Hope.
partners? in-
Yeah, Salome knows if she needs it, she can just let me know and I'll schedule it.
I say we schedule it for Sunday's bathroom.
With the
With
bowl of
noodles.
spaghetti.
Bring the noodles.
I will.
That too.
Yeah.
We
So
can
funny.
tentative and we will figure out
Yeah, we
location.
can confirm it later.
Yes.
Okay. All right, everybody, have a good night.
You
Bye-bye,
too.
have fun.
Enjoy your
Bye.
spaghetti.
I will. One more week. Woohoo!
Oh.
In heaven.
The way to get in there.
Right.
Mhm.